Hello friends, hi, welcome to the new video of the randomizer. Today the video I have picked, it is very interesting because it is going to talk about iPhone 15 Pro. Yes, iPhone 15 Pro. It is going to launch this year itself, I think maybe in September. But the team of ZoneofTech have mentioned so many interesting things and some Apple's most controversial change in it. Let's see what they have mentioned into it. It is going to be very interesting video. Let's see what they have mentioned into it. I'll start the video now. Let's see.
I feel like every day there's a big new iPhone leak that comes out. Well, in this video, we have 4 new leaks.
Four new
And I
leaks.
want to start off with
These are
the
leaks.
most controversial one by far, which is Apple potentially removing the SIM tray from all global models.
Wow.
Some of you might know that the iPhone 14 had indeed removed the SIM
Yeah,
tray
correct.
from the US models, with all iPhone 14 models sold in the US now only offering eSIM. The
Correct.
reason why they didn't just do that everywhere was because eSIM was and still isn't as widely used outside of the US.
Right.
In the UK, for example, only 5 carriers support
5
eSIM.
carriers.
In Greece and my home country of Romania, there are only 2, as opposed to over 40 in the US. Well, it seems like Apple might be changing their minds and implementing eSIM everywhere, as according to a French tech website, iGeneration, the French version of the iPhone 15 would not have a SIM slot.
Wow.
Now, the French version of the iPhone 14 Pro, for example, is model number A2890,
Okay.
which is the same model that's sold in the UK, in Europe, and in almost every part of the world, with very few exceptions. So if this leak is correct, then it pretty much confirms that the iPhone 15s will not have a SIM tray globally.
Is it going to be
But I
removed
also think that
permanently?
there's another clue that points towards the SIM tray going away.
Wow.
In our last video, I talked about the iPhone 15 Pro's haptic volume buttons and how Apple would be adding 2 extra haptic engines for a total of 3. The only problem is that if Apple simply makes the volume buttons fixed rather than pressable, they would only save like half a millimeter on each side of the phone. That's not enough
Interesting.
to put 2 extra haptic engines inside, which, keep in mind, are quite big. However, in that video, I was also saying how with US models of the iPhone 14s, even though Apple had indeed removed the SIM slot, they actually kept that extra freed space empty by simply just putting a useless piece of plastic in its place. And that piece of plastic is large enough to fit a haptic engine inside.
Wow.
In fact, it might even be able to fit 2 of them if Apple simply makes them a bit smaller. I think that this, combined with the French model leak, is pretty much confirmation that Apple will be indeed using that empty space to add those 2 extra haptic engines. So that sounds great, we're getting 2 extra haptic motors, but are there any major downsides to Apple removing the SIM tray?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest downside is that a lot of carriers outside of the
Carriers
US
in
do
US.
not support eSIM. Meaning that if you're planning to get a new iPhone 15, there's a good chance that you won't be able to, unless you're willing to switch carriers.
Correct.
Not only that, but some countries lack eSIM support entirely, making it impossible for users to use an iPhone 15 there. Also, not having traditional SIM support will make it even harder for when you're traveling, as you won't be able to simply go to any store and buy a prepaid.
Yeah, let
15
me know, are
gig
you
SIM card.
supporter
Instead,
of
you'll have to pay
eSIM or
significantly
not?
more for those international eSIM options. But there are also a number of upsides. Aside from your phone offering you a much better typing experience and more dynamic notifications through improved haptics, eSIM means that they're technically theft-proof,
Yeah.
or at least in the way that if your phone gets stolen, the thief would not be able to remove the SIM card, hence making it impossible for you
That
to
is
track
more
it.
secured,
With eSIM, a
right?
stolen phone would always be visible on the map as long as
Yeah.
it is charged. And by Apple only offering eSIM, this would skyrocket the adoption of eSIM.
Correct.
Meaning carriers that do not support it will, and therefore removing the availability and convenience of eSIMs today. A quick update, I did actually tweet about this, and both Shrimp Apple Pro and Unknown Z21 disagree with my theory, both of which have good track records. And they're saying that Apple will not be removing the SIM tray from the global iPhone 15 models. I don't really see how Apple would free up the required space inside otherwise for those 2 extra haptic motors. Even if they are smaller, that is still a considerable amount of space to free up.
Right.
To which Shrimp Apple Pro did actually seem to agree to that, yes, they will be smaller. But do leave your thoughts down below if you have any suggestions on what Apple could remove or shrink to make room for those 2 extra haptic engines, as I really doubt that they'd be able to make the logic board that much smaller.
Right.
Now, aside from this main eSIM leak, there are 3 smaller iPhone 15 leaks that I want to talk about. With a new report coming from Taiwanese research firm TrendForce claiming that Apple will bump the capacity and specifications of the RAM inside the iPhone 15
8 GB.
lineup. TrendForce had previously stated that the iPhone 15 Pros will get updated to 8 GB of RAM from the current 6, so it could be that the regular iPhone 15s would still feature 6 GB of RAM, but of faster LPDDR5 speeds as opposed to the current
It'll be more
LPDDR4X.
faster.
In fact, if Apple keeps this idea of giving the non-Pro models last year's Pro chip, then the standard iPhone 15s would now be getting the Apple A16 that the iPhone 14 Pros had. The A16s did actually feature built-in LPDDR5 memory, so I think this leak does make a lot of sense. And I gotta say, 8 GB of RAM in the Pro models will be quite interesting to see. Usually iOS has always had less RAM than the Android equivalent, as Apple tends to have slightly better optimization in place. This, however, will be the very first time when a flagship iPhone would have the same amount of RAM as a flagship Android. The S23 Ultra, for example, comes with 8 gigs of RAM on the base 256 gigabyte configuration. I don't know if this just means that we'll see better RAM management in general, which
size or things in this Samsung,
or if we'll get some fresh new features exclusively for the 15 Pro models. Maybe features like true side-by-side multitasking, one of my most requested features over the years.
Interesting.
Yeah, we do actually have an iOS 17 video in the works for those of you who subscribe to the channel. Another interesting change is a brand new proximity sensor, which according to Ming-Chi Kuo, will now be placed inside the dynamic island as opposed to it being under the display like it currently is on the iPhone 14 Pro. It seems like the reason behind this change is simply Apple changing their supplier, possibly to reduce costs. But wouldn't this simply make the dynamic island bigger? Well, Ming-Chi Kuo states that it would have almost no change to its size. Interesting how he didn't say that it won't have any change, but instead he said that it would have almost no change. So it could be that the dynamic island will be getting a tiny bit bigger. Although, from the CAD models and the leaks, this doesn't really seem to be the case. In fact, the dynamic island even had more space above it thanks to the thinner bezels on the iPhone 15 Pros. So yeah, I wouldn't really be worried about this. If anything, we could see an even faster response time from that new proximity sensor by going from a 1380 nanometer wavelength to a 940 nanometer one. A shorter wavelength could offer various benefits such as improved sensitivity to light, reduced interference, faster response times, a smaller sensor size, and better power efficiency. Although I doubt that we'll notice any of these when using it. And we also have another update on the whole haptic volume button situation. A few weeks ago, I tweeted about how Apple will likely unify the volume buttons based on the CAD models that came out, as the volume button holes in those CAD models match the connectors that Apple was using on the long power button of the iPhone 14. My tweet then got picked up by a couple of tech publications, after which this info was confirmed by 9to5Mac that this was actually happening. And now we have a second source confirming this, with Shrimp Apple Pro sharing a video originally posted on the Chinese version of TikTok that seems to show some fresh iPhone 15 Pro CAD models. And these CAD models do indeed show that unified volume button as well as the redesigned mute switch. Now, some were theorizing that this new mute switch could now be a customizable button, similar to what Apple did with the Apple Watch Ultra. In fact, when we first designed our iPhone 15 Ultra concept, this was way before any of the design leaks came out, we did give it a remappable button to match the Apple Watch Ultra. We never ended up rendering that concept, as the CAD design leaks came out shortly after. So we ended up making our concept from scratch based on those CAD
I like the
leaks.
bezels.
But it could indeed be the case that the new switch would now be a smarter button capable of a variety of functions, one of which would still be, of course, muting your phone. It could be that double tap and hold gestures are added for additional functionality. Like, imagine just holding that to launch the camera, or double tapping to launch an app of your choice. That would be amazing. And then, of course, different haptic motors get utilized to give you the right amount of haptic feedback based on what action you choose for that button. Personally, I'm really excited to see how Apple gets to take full advantage of those two extra haptic engines inside the iPhone 15 Pros. Do leave your comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions, and as always, feel free to tap on the YouTube shop cards down below.
So that was it. It was really interesting video that ZoneofTech people have made. So I have become more excited to see no SIM into the mobile phone. I will be, I think, purchasing my first new iPhone, and I'm waiting very aggressively for iPhone 15, and I'll buy iPhone 15 Pro, not the Max, because it looks really heavy, onto the hands. So yeah, iPhone Pro is fine, and let's see. I'm going to be using that phone very soon once they will launch it here in Canada. The one thing which he has mentioned about there will be no physical SIM into the mobile. That is, I mean, I'm not big fan of that, like not having a physical SIM into it. But then again, from a security standpoint, it seems that that if anyone will will steal your phone, they'll not be able to change anything into your phone, and you will be able to detect your phone by the location of it, right? Because if you cannot take out the SIM, and your details are into it, you can track your phone easily. So that is one of the safety features which I really like the most. You tell me down below in the comment that what did you like the most in this video, which is like 15 Pro. It is not the exact 15 Pro that they have mentioned, but then again very similar to what is going to be launched in September month. Another part is that I'm really excited about is the camera features and the shot bezels, which I mentioned during the video, that I'm a fan of that. Plus the dynamic island for sure, because I'm sure that they will be mentioning so many different functions to it. So it's going to be very excited, and let's see how this new iPhone 15 will be looking like. Thank you very much for watching my video. Please support me by subscribing my channel, like it and share it as well. I'll be coming very soon with the new video, guys. Thank you so much, and bye for now.